Bathurst. It's one of those places synonymous with motorsport, known mostly these days for two races, the 12-hour sports car race and the 1,000-kilometer supercar epic. A race which very much deserves its seat alongside the other pillars of motorsport, the Indianapolis 500, the Monaco Grand Prix. I think the Bathurst 1000 is one of those events. And it all takes place here at the Mount Panorama circuit, a track which was built in the late 1930s and has seen its fair share of different events with open-wheelers racing, but mostly sports cars and closed-wheel competition over the years. Calling Mount Panorama crazy might be the wrong word, but shocking might be another word for it. The track itself, I think anytime somebody takes a first lap here, your eyes are open wide going over the top of the mountain. Bathurst and the modern Mount Panorama circuit have been a part of Automobilista 2 for quite a while, but now with the most recent update, Risa have released a backdated 1983 version of Bathurst. Now, Mount Panorama as a circuit hasn't changed greatly over the years. Of course, there's a few less barriers and some really intimidating dirt embankments right next to the circuit. Less advertisements overall, giving it a bit more of that lush green feel. And the advertisements which are there are of course period correct or impersonating something period correct. But over its 84 years, the Mount Panorama circuit has seen one major change to the course overall, or that was the addition or interruption, if you will, of the long back section of the course, the long straight which brings you home, the Conrod straight. It was the addition of what they call the chase, fitting the role of a chicane and slowing the cars down as they approach Murray's Corner, a 90-degree left-hander which ends the lap. The chase was a much-needed safety innovation. And from what I can see out there, although I'm not a Bathurst die-hard, it seems that most these days get on with it just fine. I think if you're going to put a chicane in a course, this is the right way to do it, a bit wider than a lot of just flick left-right chicanes that we see these days. But does provide quite a different atmosphere to the circuit, having this long, uninterrupted back section of the course that culminates in this tight 90-degree corner, a braking zone which is so hard to get right. So it's wonderful that this circuit has been brought to a sim in this state. I think there's been some modded versions out over the years, and I think one actually just released recently for R-Factor 2. But as far as I can tell, this is the first official release of a backdated Bathurst circuit, and it's one which I feel is very much at home in AMS2. Now, most unfortunately, we don't really have anything that's appropriate to race here. Appropriate as in the exact vehicles and series and things which raced here. But this track is very much at home for a lot of different types of vehicles, and I actually find it most fun in some of the smaller, lower-powered cars. I think it's a great place to have somewhat of an enduro-style race, but something that does seem to fit quite well are these 70s and 80s Brazilian stock cars, these Chevrolet Apollos, as they were called. And although they are a bit slower than the real cars that would have raced here in the mid-1980s, I've been having quite a bit of fun chucking these things around this crazy course. So I've got us set up for a fun race. 16 laps are about 10% of what the real Bathurst 1000 would be. Starting from the rear of the grid and trying to make my way towards the front. A small glimpse at this magnificent auto race from down under. Alright, so here we are at the back of the grid and literally wrapped around Murray's Corner. Lights out, away we go. I can't even see the lights. I wonder if they'd have a flagman or somebody there in real life to let those folks know that we're green. But we made it anyway. Onto the front stretch now. We'll come down towards the first corner. Hell Corner, I believe it's called. Aptly named. We'll try not to rear end anybody here, but down to second gear. Whoa, heavy on the brakes on the opening lap. Try to get the speed up because this will lead us on to Mountain Straight. Just a bit of a touch there, but want to get side by side. I found the AI out-dragged me quite easily on some of the straights, but I've done a good job, at least on this opening lap. But we'll get it up to fourth gear here, right as we come over the rise. And up to Quarry, I believe it's called. Down to third gear. Quite an easy corner to overshoot. Put it into second on this lap. And then get the throttle down as we'll head onto the mountain proper. And you'll see the track is just cut into the mountain. If you've somehow never seen Bathurst before, I'm sure most of you are aware, as a car in front tags the banking, but no walls on the left. Much different than it is these days, just sandbanks. So we'll get side by side here. But cut into the side of it, it's what makes Bathurst so unique. tricky spot to pass or go 2x2 though, but it looks like it's all clean so far. A couple bumps and elbows out in front, but I've had a few pileups in this so far, which is not unrealistic to get a track blocker around Bathurst. But now we'll come through, I think this is Skyline, and work down towards the Dipper. The S's first here, down to second gear, and come into the Dipper. It's kind of a Laguna Seca-esque corner. A lot of fun when we're on a faster lap. But then come now to the end of the mountain section into Forest Elbow. Deceptive corner, so easy to understeer your way off. It's quite a bit longer than you think it would be. There's a nice wall to greet you on the outside, but then get it up the gears and onto the Conrod, the uninterrupted Conrod straight up to fourth gear then. And just keep an eye on my mirror because I have a feeling I'm going to be visited here quite soon, but no sight lines, which makes it extra dangerous. You really can't see what's in front of you with these big hills, but it's so awesome seeing the field stretched out in front of me like that. Winding our way down towards Murray's Corner, we'll come over this rise. One final rise in front. Want to jump on the brakes just past this bridge. Maybe a bit earlier on this lap. Looking for a lunge from behind, but not going to happen. Coming to the final corner, a bit deep there, Murray's Corner. It's a bit lazy on the brakes, but come across complete, or start lap number 2, I guess. Complete lap number 1 here at Bathurst. We'll see if I can make some progress in front. But very nice circuit. I think I've said for a little while now that the Automobilista 2 graphics department, I think, is doing a pretty great job on some of these historical tracks. It's a bit barren here in Bathurst, and maybe the complaint could be about spectators. I'd have to imagine there would be some spectators in some of these fields and things, but up on the mountain you do see some. And I do know that around Bathurst, to this day, it's a public road and housing area most of the year, and it's only on select days that they have races, so perhaps the locals don't want a bunch of rowdy spectators on their lawns. I wouldn't blame them, but there we go, some spectators up on the hill. But it does feel a little bit dead in that department, but otherwise, I know this area isn't exactly a city or anything like that, so it feels very Australian. I know I've got quite a few viewers from Australia. I'm sure you'll be able to tell us the authenticity of it. But I love the more natural feeling of the circuit. These days, the track is absolutely plastered with advertisements on every single wall and banners everywhere, and you know how it is, but it's nice to have it a little more raw. A few less walls here and there, some grass to greet us on the sides of the course. Down to second gear, come through the Dipper this time. Try to get on the throttle as early as possible. The track is so interesting there because of the camber in it. You can really allow the car to pick up some speed, come up the inside into Force Elbow, side by side, slight touch, whoa, but make it out. It's a fun place to go side by side, dip in behind, try to get the slipstream here as everybody fans out. Got the AI as always set quite hard, so I don't know how well I'll ultimately be able to do. It wouldn't be too much fun to run away out front. But we should have to make a pit stop. Got it on 4 times fuel burn. And we'll see how well the AI can cope with that. All right, but a little bit of a run, and we got cars 4 wide in front, so we'll come to the end of the stretch. Nice run then. I'm trying not to break myself this time into Murray's. Not quite as beefy of an engine in these cars, I think, as the cars that would have raced in the 80s here in Australia, but it's a pretty interesting car, this Opala. Slide up the inside. I have a nice run on these 4 battling with each other. They'll slow each other down a bit. The Opala, from what I understand, is kind of the marriage between a German Opel and a GM engine, and sold specifically in Brazil, so definitely not something that I could have imagined would race here, but it at least aesthetically looks correct. But I do believe it's quite down on power. I think we're about 10 seconds off the lap times they would have been doing in the mid-80s. Oh, as the car behind just got distracted in my mirror as he's thinking about a move up the inside of the cutting. A lot of good names on this circuit for the corners. You have to appreciate a track which has all the corners named as, riding there in the car behind. Well, I can't say I've seen something like that before, but the car behind rolling up on its side from hitting the walls, hitting the embankments. There were some massive crashes here back in the day, but I don't know if I've ever seen something like that. Yeah, I've found the AI, at least in these cars, are quite friendly with the walls, so you get some tricky stuff like that. Just chasing the car here down through. Keep it out wide. You do want kind of a wide sweeping in line through Forest Elbow. Get back onto Conrod Straight. So up to 26 out of 32. I've got the full field that you can do on this track, 32 cars. And I would love something. I think it would be great if they did some more appropriate cars, but Ryza did advertise these cars quite a bit in screenshots because I think they really look correct for the circuit. I think fits the time period well, at least. But if somebody does maybe an Aussie skin pack for them or something like that, but it would be great to get some of the actual cars because the car roster was make a bit of contact there through Murray's. I didn't quite get the apex. But you look back on some of these Bathurst 1000 races and the car rosters are just unbelievable. The Holdens and the Fords, but you also have some different car brands that you don't see a lot. Like Isuzu, I think, was in some races. Nissans, of course. Some of the Asian brands that you wouldn't necessarily see in like US road racing, at the time at least. So quite the eclectic grid back in these days. But as always, it's one of the complaints to see coming up more and more, I think, with AMS2 is just you get bits and pieces, but never the full thing. This feels a little bit like that, although I'm having quite a lot of fun with these cars. There's a car behind, once again, going to think about going up the inside. They're quite daring. Always the AI here in an Automobilista 2. Almost said Assetto Corsa. See if we get anybody flipping again. Clear this time. Just caught up to the 8 there. It's hard to stay right in behind somebody through this whole section unsighted. Maybe side by side down here. It's a little bit of runoff if you don't get it quite right. That's not going to work. Down to second gear. Come through the dipper. I wish I could do an Australian accent because I love how Australians say the dipper. It seems like a word that really fits the language. All right, we'll come out though, right up to the wall there. Had to let off the throttle just a little bit to catch the car. I see a massive pack of cars up front. I'm actually shocked there hasn't been an accident yet because in some of my test races here, there have been some major big ones. Tires and things everywhere. This car has a great damage model, and I think Automobilista, they've done some updates to those for some of the cars. This one definitely has it. Oh, as he moves side to side on the track, trying to find a place around. They certainly keep it interesting. We'll have enough space to slide it up the inside. A very late move, push him out right to the edge of the track. It's not how you make friends on the race course. Come down to hell corner then. So already on lap number 5. So we do have to pit at some point. And I've got the in-cockpit fuel gauge, but you might have seen right off the start as I get boxed out to the outside. You might have seen right at the start of the race that the gauge was over the full tank, so I actually don't quite know how much fuel I have left. I could turn on the HUD, but it's kind of fun to use the real gauges. So I don't know if it'll go all the way to empty, but figure I'll stop when I see other cars stopping, and hopefully they play nice with the strategy, because that's one other thing I've heard they've worked on is run right to the edge of the track, paint the outside line. Down to second gear, got the position, so up to 23rd, just ride the bumper, making a bit of contact, bump drafting up the mountain. Block the inside a little bit there. Car behind's thinking about it. Would actually get a decent run here on this blue car in front. Slide up the inside. Double left-hander here. It's just a bit tricky, a bit narrow to go too wide. But able to make it work. He backs out of it. Another good run here. Oh, this is a tough place to pass. Maybe want to try the right side there if I can get alongside. All right, get it down the mountain though. Oh, there's the car behind. Saw another one trying to do a Tony Hawk there. Slide it through Forest Elbow. You know, and just looking up the circuit a little bit, and I've watched some of the more modern Bathurst 1000s, but I really haven't gone back. It was one of those events, just being in America, it felt like not many folks knew about up until more recently, and now that streaming and broadcasts are more widely available, it's this big event that everyone knows about. But it felt like 20 years ago that it really wasn't something, maybe you've heard of it, but had never seen it at all. So we got a great run on these two. To jump on the brakes quite early, there's just nowhere to go. Basically a too wide road, this whole thing. Hanging around the outside, maybe I can push my friend here in front. There we go, teamwork. Come down to the first corner, car's still on the inside. Just try to carry some speed. Nice side-by-side action. All right, able to get around him here. Whoa, just make a bit of contact there. So slide side-by-side then. Pulling on him quite nicely. Up to fourth gear, that's where I tend to bog down a bit. Come over the top of this rise on Mountain Straight. Then up to Quarry, side by side. Backs out of it, thankfully. Get it down to second, gonna run him a little bit wide there, but I got it. All right, as long as I can stay in front here through the cutting, I should finally get around this backpack and see if I can catch these cars up front. It's getting a bit dark. Have it set to, as we're doing about 10% of the race, I've got it on 10 times progression, and a bit of weather changes, but no rain expected today. Although that would be certainly an experience around here. All right, but finally clear of some traffic and see if I can put together some decent sectors here across the mountain. Not quite halfway yet, so we still have a little bit till we definitely need to pit. As I was saying, with the Bathurst races, and specifically the 1000, but also the 12-hour, they just felt like these more obscure events that weren't as easy to get a hold of, I guess I'd say, up until the last couple decades at least. So it's great now that we know about them more globally. I think this is seen as one of those major races, as I said in the introduction, and it's a one I definitely catch every year. But I hadn't seen a lot of the very old races, so just in looking at this track and trying to get a gauge on how authentic it looks, I did search around for some of the old Bathurst races, and they're all on YouTube mostly. The 83 race and I think the 86 race as well that I was looking for were both on there. And it's just so cool seeing, you know, Peter Brock and Dick Johnson. So just keeping an eye on the car behind, over-revving quite a bit coming into Murray's, but it's tough to get a handle on the engine in this car. I can't quite figure it out yet. But yeah, Peter Brock, Dick Johnson, those are two names that, even though this is not something I really grew up with, definitely know those names at least. Dick Johnson did some racing over in the States as well. Peter Brock may have, not as familiar, but it's just very, very cool event. You can feel the tone of the broadcasts and things too. You know, they're treating it or presenting it like the big event it is. And it's always exciting. All right, we'll come up to Quarry here. I might want to keep it in third gear now that I don't have traffic around. I think I've closed in just slightly on this group in front. Nice rhythm track this though. They do, of course, the 12-hour race. That's one of those early events in the season. Seems like the whole racing world's ready to see some racing after the holidays. And the 12-hour, what is it, in the beginning of February or late January every year. It's one of those races that folks seem to catch, and a unique one. It's kind of like the opposite of a Sebring where they start at night here and then go into the day. It seems like that night portion at the very beginning is so short because it's really just the last hour or two before daybreak. But thread the needle over the mountain here. Really good stuff. It's very enjoyable driving this. But I did try, I was thinking about doing this as one of those 24-hour cycles, but thought I'd keep it a little more authentic to the 1000 since that is the big race here. But it is fun racing around this at night. It is a challenge, absolutely a big challenge, with just some headlights in front of you. It's a very dark track. As you can see, there's no real lights on the circuit or anything like that. Chasing down this pack in front. So we got about, next lap will be halfway. I wonder if I'll start seeing cars jump in the pits. The way the fuel works out, said we could do, at least in the setup screen, about 11 laps. I previously had tried this on 3 times fuel, which is what I tend to run for a lot of races, but at 16 laps, you can just about make it, and so it was kind of awkward. It's not too much fun to do 16 fuel-saving laps. So make it a bit more clear that we're going to pit at some point and just take some fuel. Tires are on normal wear, and I just noticed a Repco. I don't know how I didn't see that previously, but a Repco advertisement. Of course, Repco was Jack Brabham's main engine for Grand Prix in the mid-60s when he won his championships. Talk about Repco a lot lately with the 66 season that I'm doing. Kept it in third that time through Quarry, worked out. Of course, you got the Fasters. People always loves the Fasters advertisements, stand in for Fosters, but really looks the part. It's interesting, you don't see, and maybe it's not easy to do or possible, but you don't see a lot of track skins for AMS2 tracks. That'd be one of those things. I wonder if it's possible and you could kind of update the advertisements to include the stuff that Ryza really can't. So we'll run right to the edge there. There's a little berm right on the side of the track. I guess where there's a wall these days. A little bit early down to second. It's kind of a banked berm on the inside there. But enamored with this track, as I think everybody is. I've been taking in a bit more of the Australian racing scene lately with the supercars kicking off this year. I want to at least catch highlights of those races, if not the full things. Time's always awkward for when they're on here. But it is great racing. And I've been watching back, as you would have known, just through some of the videos, been looking at a lot of old NASCAR stuff and revisited the whole Thunder from Down Under, Calder Thunderdome era of NASCAR going to Australia and then Australia having a NASCAR series. And racing in Australia is this incredibly diverse and interesting thing that, at least on this side of the planet, we don't always think about. All right, we'll come around right out to the edge. I'm closing up on these guys, but it's just inch by inch, but I should be able to catch them here in the next lap or so and see if I can make some moves before we dive into the pits. It says I'm just under a half tank of fuel if the gauge is accurate. But Bathurst has been a track in quite a few sims. I hosted a race here back in the day in iRacing. It's kind of this crazy endurance, these mini endurance races, but at the time felt like long endurance races that we did. And that's a favorite track of a lot of folks on iRacing. But having this historic version is quite nice. I hope it gets a lot of use from folks and that some of the multiplayer stuff with this sim gets sorted out so that you could host some longer races here. Whoa, as I nicked the inside of the bank there. Car feels fine. I feel like that would rip the suspension off in real life. Come over through Skyline. You get such a nice view over the horizon here. You can't really take it in because you're so busy at the wheel, but it's a great place for some screenshots or some photos in real life. All right, closing up now. I'm just about on this pack. Down to second gear. Get it on the straight. I think we got a bottleneck in front. Maybe somebody scrubbed the wall. Well, it's going to get quite tricky here to figure out where to go. Leave the inside lane open though. Fourth gear. Fanning out a little bit. Can we make this run work? Just bully everybody else into going on different lines so we can take the run. Just have to try to time the braking here so that we don't miss it. Oh, as he checks up a little bit, I'll make a bit of contact. All right. Get it down the gears. Up the inside, I'll take all the curb this time. And pushing a few cars out wide, that's definitely taking advantage. But make the passes at least. This car in front looks quite beat up as I get shoved out wide. Tasting my own medicine there. All right, car in front, give him a little bit of a nudge here. We can do locked on, slipstreaming, bump drafting. Whoa, what was that? I have no idea what that car just did, but it luckily worked out for me. I don't think I even really hit him. All right, fender to fender then. Let's try to regain composure a little bit after that one. You can see in my mirror that car is quite beat up. So he's been through something today. Maybe just decided that me pushing him wasn't enough as these cars in front knock the inside. Almost seems like there's a fake wall there potentially. Oh, this whole group checks up as well. So getting past quite a few cars here, some shenanigans with the AI. They raced really well for the first part of the race, but I wonder if they're running low on fuel. So the other times I've tried this again, I had it on slightly higher fuel burn. All right, come over the top of the ridge then. Car right in my mirror, but I just won't care about them. They don't seem to ever really rear end you unless you give them a gap to go for. All right, up the gearbox, right behind this number 7. Into Forrest Elbow. He's going to actually slip up the inside maybe. Being indecisive. Just carry the fast speed around the outside. There we go. All right, so we're getting quite low on fuel, and hopefully I'll see some cars pitting in and I'll just follow them into the pits. We should be able to do at least another lap, I'd imagine. In the slipstream here. 1,000 kilometers around this circuit is unreal. Be quite a long race. This car's in front. I have to imagine he's pitting, wagging around like that. Get it down to second gear. Very hot into Murray's corner. Right out onto the grass. I'll actually follow him in if I can. Phasing through everybody here as we'll come down the pit lane. Try to find my pit stall. I just can't tell where it is at all. Come over some of these speed bumps in the pit lane. Interesting enough. All right, down to first gear, in the box. Hectic pit entry. All right, so some of the first leaders jumping out of the pits. Should be full any second. I'm just doing fuel, no tires. Don't need tires. All right, there we go. Cruise done. See if I can zip out here. I'll just run over the cone. It's fine. Here comes that damaged car. Let him in front. So come through and exit the pits. Really awkward pits there. I guess with everybody pitting more or less on the same lap just because of the limited distance makes it quite hectic. It's a very narrow pit lane, but we'll come out. It's everybody's single file here, I guess merging back on the racing line. So I guess if I was to have one complaint about all this, as you can maybe see, the AI are just a bit odd. And especially for this car, I expected this car to work a little bit better than it does, since it was used in all the promo materials and things for this, but there's just some odd behaviors here and there as these two side by side. See if I can keep it around the outside as we'll head into the cutting. Just got cars knocking into the barriers and things. I like how the cars feel a lot. This car itself, there's kind of two models of these Opala stock cars. This is the later model, I think based on the 86 Brazilian stock car series. There's also a 79, which a little less aero things going on, no spoilers. I think the front air dam is non-existent, so they slide around a lot more, a little more body roll and things like that. Almost chose that car to drive around here, but I felt like these fit the vibe of 83 a bit better. But both really fun cars to drive, if not just a little underpowered feeling, but very controllable. And I guess folks have to tell me how close is. We had our car up in the air there for a second. Maybe this is like Bathurst with some of the AI craziness. These races do seem to have some crazy moments in them. So it's up in third gear there, missed the shift to fourth, and I'm going to be swallowed up from the few cars behind me. But racing in a pack here. Saw something fly off a car there, maybe. Oh, what was that? Some kind of hood or something. I watch for flying debris, so I'll head down about half throttle now, come down to Murray's Corner and try to not bottle this one up like last time. I carry a bit of speed around the outside. There, squeeze my way in. There's no space, you can make it for yourself. Come across the line, just a few laps to go now. Alright, side by side, throttle up on a mountain straight. So I fell back to 16th through all that pit stop nonsense. Let's see if I can get back into at least the front half of the field, up into 15th. We're battling for 15th here, so looks like it's possible. Maybe even a top 10 if I get lucky. Keep it in third gear then. Just not enough torque right at the bottom end of it. I believe this car has a little over 200 horsepower as the two in front knock into the inside there. I'd love to have them do another pass here. I mean, overall, a lot of folks saying things about the AI and AMS2, and sometimes they're so good, and other times they're really not. It seems to be kind of middle of the road these days for a lot of different sims. Alright, fourth gear, come over the crest here. I'd love to actually see a race at Bathurst someday. I know a few other folks I follow online have gone to trips to see the 1000 or the 12-hour, and just to see the track, even on an off day, would be something special. But to actually go there for a race, just the cultural shock of it all too. It's one of the appeals to going somewhere like Le Mans, or to really any race outside the United States. I've done races in the US so many times, but going somewhere else and seeing how they do it would give such a better perspective of motor racing as a whole. So we lost quite a bit of distance through Forest Elbow there. I've got a couple cars coming up behind me. I'll slip to the inside. At least want the inside line if you're going to pass. He's got a heck of a run and does the right thing with it. Oh, quite slow over the top of the hill. We'll be kind of side by side almost, coming down into Murray's. All right, right on the curbs on the inside. Push him out wide. I'm being somewhat of a bully in this race, but I'll see if I can make my way up a few more spots before the end of it. All right, right behind the two cars in front. Everybody's got a little bit of damage now, but feels like Bathurst, or this is that really damaged car actually side by side with now. Come past all the farms. Put it down into second this time. The car just bogs down just a little too much. It's the problem with having 4 gears. You always want a little more in one corner. All right, sliding it through. So glad this track is finally out. I know on the horizon there's still at least one more classic circuit to come out, and that of course is the Nürburgring 1970 version, 1971 or thereabout. Same era that they've been doing the rest of the classic Grand Prix tracks in. And they did announce that they will also be doing the Südschleife, which I think is good. For some reason, I assumed it would include that from the very get-go. So I'm glad they are doing it. It's a shame it is taking so long. I know this track took much longer than they originally said it would, and it was very radio silence for quite a while with Riza after the holidays, but whatever went on, we do have it now. And visually, like I said, this track is very beautiful. It's racing pretty well too. AI are a bit quirky, but it's a good amount of fun. And I think if you really like Australian motor racing or you like Bathurst, it's a no-brainer to get this. And if you already have the classic track pack, of course, it's included, so there's no extra purchase or anything like that. All right, coming to the banner, I think we just have a couple laps to go then, or 3 laps. The sun's getting a bit lower in the sky now. The atmospheric effects are definitely the biggest draw for me in AMS2, even though we've got some amazing things in Assetto Corsa with custom shaders patch and Soul and Pure Weather. I still really like the effects and everything in AMS2. They work really well, and they're easy to set up and run. Right at the top of the rev range there, get it up to 4th. But it's cleared back up. I had it on a bit of a light cloud to mostly cloudy, back to light cloud type setting, just enough to make it feel atmospheric. And as the sun dips lower and lower in the sky, gives you that great impression that a race has happened today. As I come up the inside here, this will be interesting as the two in front clobber the walls. Whoa. Slows them down as I'm going to slide out and hit the wall myself there. Hopefully the car's all right there. That was a good whack to the side, but just caught up to the car in front of me into the braking zone. Right at the apex of the corner, really, and shot me out wide. A little bit wide here through Skyline, right up to the edge. Tires might starting to get worn slightly. Rush it down the mountain. Ooh, a big fender on the road there. So somebody's had some contact with the wall. Look out for a stricken vehicle somewhere. There's got one slower car. That might be him on the inside there. So everybody's going to pack up next to him. See if I can dart my way around. Not going to be quite enough space here, but just making it work out. Pick up a ton of positions. So come down to the end of the straight, underneath the Riza banner. Hard on the brakes. Just later on the downshifts, there we go, down to 2nd. A little bit deep, but get the position from the 2 identically painted cars behind me. We'll come across the line. 2 more laps to go here. And up into 8th position. So somehow I've gotten up into the top 10 with all the happenings. And looking for a bit more. So if anybody has suggestions over other vehicles to race around here, I think it could be quite appropriate to do some of the older Formula cars, because they did race some Formula type races here, more of the open type Formula, not quite, Formula 5000 that we had in later years, but kind of the old word or the old definition of the Grand Prix, where you can kind of bring anything, whether it was a open-wheeled car or just a sporty road vehicle. when this track first opened in the late 30s and in the 40s. That's what they ran here for some of the races. I know they also held, maybe not the Tasman series, although I did my own little Tasman race here, but they held some other exhibition races for things. But I've seen some folks using some of the Group C cars around here. I was thinking about also VRC's Audi GTO. If you want some really high-powered craziness, that could be a lot of fun to blast down the straights here. And they did also release another modded car. So we got a car coming back on the left side here. He's going to try to get position. I'll sneak in right with him as the car behind. Really fast closing up. Sometimes feels like they don't quite accelerate the same way as you. These two in the chic number 7 car is going to slide out the outside. I'm seeing double. We'll come down into Murray's corner, so one more lap around. We've got a fight on our hands to stay in the top 10. Carry a lot of speed there. Sun almost straight in the eyes. So it should be approximately the same time in the afternoon that the real race would end. All right, down to second gear, up into the first corner, right on the curb there. Whoa, maybe slide up the inside, just nicking the car in front. So we'll go side by side. I'm trying to get a little bit of a slipstream off this car to my right. He's going to dive in front of me, thankfully. But bogging down in fourth gear as we'll come over the rise. Side by side up to Quarry. Hang it in there, come on, carry the speed. He's gonna get the pass done on me. All right, we'll stay behind, and hopefully there's no mess here up in the cutting. Back up just a little bit. There's a car behind's looking up the inside as well. Oh, slide out right to the wall there. Up to third gear. So hard to follow another car through the mountain section of this course, but you absolutely need to. So make a bit of contact. But try to open up the inside line as he's actually going to have a bit of a run on me. I'm a mess through there. Alright, I'm going to have to get a really good end of the lap here. See if I can sneak it up this right side here. Nah, it's not going to work. You have to be so late on the brakes. It's not really a hard braking zone. So we'll come down to the dipper. Final time. All right, staying right in line, we'll come to Forest Elbow. Want to get a good exit here, but might also be a good spot to make a move. Slide up the inside, right against the white line, get on the throttle. Whoa, get it all crossed up. All right, up the gears. I think I made the pass. Yeah, I got around both of them. Thought there might still be one side by side with me, but getting around those two yellow chic cars, this one's going to come back on me. Block the inside line. Down the uninterrupted Conrod straight. A beautiful thing. Slide in behind. Easily makes that pass. I just have no straight line speed. Oh, come on. I want to hold on to 10th. Here we go. Come to the end of the stretch. Brake as late as I can down into Murray's. Car's coming up the inside as well. Ooh, it nips me. Jump on the curbs. Oh, coming to the line. I think that first line might have been it. So first line was the finish line, but holding on to 9th, not able to get back up into 8th. But a fun little race here at Bathurst. Classic 1983 Bathurst. A great experience and fun to do in AMS2. So I think I'll have to call this one Being a Bully Around Bathurst or something similar to that. Definitely using up the AI to my advantage, but coming home in the top 10, which is always fun. Bathurst is an incredible circuit, and it's nice to get a different version of it, something that's not just the modern variant. So very happy to see an 80s Bathurst in the sim. I would have loved to also see even an older one, maybe something in the 40s or the 50s with absolutely no safety or walls. But having the uninterrupted Conrod straight, I know will please a lot of folks. But it would be great to have something authentic to race on it, although these Opala stock cars look somewhat accurate. They are definitely a little bit slower than the Group C touring cars would have been at the time. but still a good amount of fun. I do wish the AI would race a bit cleaner, although for a sprint race or something like this, it was certainly action-packed and fun. But if you wanted to simulate a longer race, I worry that most of the cars would have damage or be out of the race by then. And graphics-wise, the track looks very nice in what it does, but it does feel a bit sterile. Maybe that's just me, and somebody can let me know if the events themselves were maybe less attended then, but I find that hard to believe. So it would be nice to see just a bit more of that carnival-type atmosphere. Maybe there's some more to come with this one. But as far as circuits go in AMS2, I think this is definitely going to be added to most of my offline calendars alongside Spa and the Nürburgring as just one of those tracks that's fun to race in almost any car. But as always, excited to see what's on the horizon and maybe some of these little issues addressed, but certainly looking forward to what's to come. So I hope you enjoyed this mini Bathurst 1000, or I guess I'll call it the Bathurst 100. 16 laps around this great historic track. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching. This is GP Laps, and I'll see you all again next time.